where are the areas in which investments would pay off the most long term?
I think it's infrastructure, infrastructure that helps make us productive, scientific research, and education. Those are the three big areas. And infrastructure tends to be postponed in downturns. Scientific research tends to be cut, and education tends to be flatlined. And that's what I'm worried about.
I worked as a political speechwriter, and I know that
You did.
most of the things that I helped write put people to sleep, but nothing quite glazed the eyes over like a speech talking about productivity.
I know.
You talked about changing language things. Productivity is just a thing that people do not really understand. And
Yeah.
I wondered if you could just talk about in terms of national prosperity. What are we talking about when we talk about productivity and the need to improve it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and it's a frustration. What people tend to think about as productivity is working harder for less money.
Exactly.
And chopping jobs. And what productivity simply is a measure of how much value added did you, Scott, create if you worked an hour, or anybody else. And what that is both a sort of a cost side and a value side to that, right? So if you actually worked hard to produce something that was a crappy product. Let's say you were on the GM assembly line working hard on producing an Aztec car, a very, very unsuccessful car, where when it got to the lot, it didn't sell, and they'd have put a $5,000, a sticker on the off on the windshield, or maybe even $10,000 rebate on the windshield to sell it. You have lower productivity because the hour you spent created less value added than if it was a brand new Malibu that's selling like hotcakes at actually the list price. So productivity has a value side and a cost side. So if it took you, we could increase productivity if it took you and your fellow workers 22 labor hours to produce the Aztec. We could get higher productivity by taking it down to 20 hours, right? Which is what people tend to think of. Or we could keep it at 22 hours, but make sure it's not $10,000 off when we sell it, because it's a car that people want. I believe that the Canadian problem is not the 22 to 20 hours, that we're actually pretty good on the efficiency side of productivity, and we're not very good, in fact, perhaps even quite bad, at the value side. We don't have an economy that works hard enough to create high value products. And when we lose out on productivity increases that the United States experiences, and people say, oh, productivity increased there and didn't here, and Canadians are saying to themselves, but I'm working hard enough, I'm screwing the bolts in as fast as I think I can. That's not the point. The point is the strategy of the company that you were working for wasn't robust enough in terms of the investment they made in R&D to come up with better products, the investments they made in understanding the consumer to come up with products that the consumers really loved and wanted. And that's our productivity challenge. It's about unique products and processes and services and creativity and innovation.
So if you were Prime Minister, and today it seems that just about anybody can be, or a Premier, what power do you have at your disposal? If improving productivity is your goal, what is the implication in terms of policy? What do they need to do, first and foremost?
A few things. One is the lifeline of productivity is investment. What you want to do is make investment as cheap as possible, so that there's as much of it as possible. So investment in R&D, investment in consumer research, investment in branding, all of those things. And our cost of investment is too high. So if I were Premier here, I would say I would do more rapid depreciation of investments, right? So we say that if you buy a big piece of machinery and equipment, you can buy it for $1 million now and write it off over 3 years or 5 years. Mm-hmm. Well, that means for tax purposes, you get a lower tax break on that every year. I'd say write it off year one, cash accounting. That would make investment cheaper.
Right.
We also haven't harmonized with the GST, and what Ontarians don't realize when they pay PST, provincial sales tax, they think that's just consumers paying that. Businesses pay it too. and that adds to the cost of buying a piece of machinery or equipment. In the provinces that have harmonized with the GST, that is not the case. And so the cost of investing is lower there. So I'd work really hard on that. The other thing I would be encouraging of is I think politicians have a bully pulpit and an ability to encourage companies to work more on innovation and differentiating themselves from competitors rather than producing the same thing that will get its price competed down and productivity reduced on the value side.